So I'm going to go ahead and call it to order so we can get started. John's going to sit down in a minute. And while we're doing that, we can start with the minutes approved from the last meeting. The only thing that I'd like to recognize on the minutes as a part of the subcommittees is that we did talk about forming ad hoc committees as well. That's not captured in the minutes. So I don't know who's in charge of updating the minutes, but that would be the one request that I have. Are there any other edits or adjustments that we want to make to the minutes from last meeting? Okay, so how about, can someone make a motion that with that one edit, we approve the minutes from last meeting? So anyone opposed to that? All right, we're going to go with a yes. And with that, I'm going to move a second.
I'll
Do
second.
we need a second? I'll second. Perfect. Do we have to go all in favor? All in favor of the minutes being approved from the last meeting?
Aye.
Right, any opposed? All right, the minutes have been approved with that one edit. And with that, I'm going to move into citizens' comments. Do we have any citizens who would like to make comment? This is a great time for you to introduce yourself really quickly.
Hi, I'm Natalie Gerber. I was asked to be a volunteer for the Resiliency Board and supporting a couple of the initiatives. So I'm just sitting here I recently moved to Mount Lebanon in June, so we came from Lawrenceville, so.
Welcome.
Good job.
So Natalie is helping us on the sustainability committee, which is why I wanted to make sure. She's a solar developer and she just moved to Mount Lebanon. So I'm going to say those good things about her too. So thank you very much for being here tonight. With that, I'm going to pass it over to the chair.
All right.
Oh, do we have anybody online? We have two, it looks like that's us, and then there's an attendee. Oh, that was Sandy, so, yeah, no.
All right.
The next matter on the agenda is the commission liaison report.
As I mentioned, Commissioner Siegler is traveling, that's his report.
On historic preservation committee update.
Okay, so our subcommittee did meet on September 12th. And basically we spent our time, the primary focus going over the duties and functions of the original preservation board. And looking at what we can do with those in terms of the new format. And we divide them into three different, basically, broad categories. There are those that are sort of long-term functions that the boards have been doing for a long time. These include things like maintaining a comprehensive inventory of significant properties, working with other entities such as the Historical Society and doing educational events and those types of things. And it also includes some initiatives that have recently been updated or completed. We now have a pretty solid online list of resources on historic preservation practices and historic districts signage program, which also the signs are up. So those things that we thought, okay, we could put those up. We don't really need to deal with any of those right now. The second thing are those things where the municipality has the responsibility through what used to be through the Historic Preservation Board, obviously, to respond to comments related to potential impacts to the National Register District. This is part of federal legislation. Anyone, it has federal funding, permitting or licensing and wants to put up like a cell phone tower is the most common thing we've been dealing with recently, but even PennDOT wants to do something, I mean, it's within the district. They've got to ask any interested parties if they have comments on whether or not this will be an impact to the historic district. And one of the things they're sort of time sensitive in that if you don't respond, they use that in their applications to the State Historic Preservation Office as an affirmative that there will be no impacts, that you agree with them and they can proceed with the project. So you always want to comment, say that we think this could have an impact. If you're proceeding forward with this project, we want to be part of any consulting parties too, which basically doesn't stop a project, but it says that you have the opportunity if it's going forward to comment and provide input in terms of what's going to happen, whether there have to be a mitigation for the impact or like what's the cell tower going to look like? Should it be there? Should it be somewhere else? Things like that. So There's that. There are also a few other things like the signage policy, neighborhood signage policy that requires some comment from the Historic Preservation Board, at least that's how it was originally worded. So those are sorts of things that are ongoing, but there's nothing to do right now, but we have to have a structure in place so that we can respond to those if and when they come up.
Phil, this is a question, because I wasn't really familiar with the Historic Preservation Board. So those, like, we'll just use cell phone towers, because that seems to be the most common thing.
Right.
Like, so that letter would come to the municipality? Would that have gone to Laura?
They've been going to Laura, and
Okay.
originally she didn't know what the heck they were.
Oh, wow, okay,
Luckily, she brought that to the board once, the second one that came around.
okay, we don't want that happening again, I would.
And, well, that project hadn't proceeded yet, so we still hadn't had an opportunity to jump in and say, wait a minute, provide comment. So they go to her, and basically, we just need to get a notification to this board that a letter, request for comment has come in, and we need to, and we can set up even just a sort of format letter, because basically you're always gonna wanna say, yeah, this could have an impact, and we wanna be a consulting party. And that's basically, it goes forward. And you need to do that in a timely manner, because sometimes these companies will play fast and loose. We had one situation where they actually ignored our letter and proceeded to with the project, and the SHPO had approved it, and we got wind of it and found out about it. And actually, they were lying to the board, and they said that they had consulted with us and that they had designed these towers in consultation with the municipality, which was just a total fabrication.
Okay.
And so we got that.
Very bold.
So I have a couple of clarifying questions. Did you have more?
Oh, no, I just wanted to be sure, just to close my question. I just want to make sure that if Laura hasn't done already, she probably has, but I just want to make sure that either Greg or myself are getting those letters so that we don't
Right,
get.
we want to change that structurally. I mean, part of it is that these companies will go onto the website and contact someone like a public information office
Okay.
and say, with their comment, because they, particularly now that there isn't anything on the website as called an historic preservation board.
So then that's actually my question. So it seems like there's a couple of things that might need to happen to formally change the way that this is tracking. So the first thing is that something on the website needs to refer to the fact that any historic preservation related issues need to go to a particular web box or a person or something, because we don't want people to think that we no longer care about this because the board no longer exists in its previous form. So it seems like we need a place and a process so that the information can come in appropriately. We also need some sort of tracking and logging so that when does it come in, who did it go to? And that seems like it's a municipal function. So this can't fall to you, of course. They can send it to you, but it shouldn't be for you to completely deal with. It should be that, like, we create this process like you're talking about, the form letter, which is the first step, which makes sure that they know that they can't give us a 30-minute window or 30-day window for something that we need more time.
Yes, that's part of what we want to do.
Which you're gonna
is
recommend.
create a structure, because that needs to be in place. So it worked fine before Laura was the liaison to this historic preservation board,
That's
so it's
right,
fine.
so
She
it was
brought
like,
it to the
made
board
sense.
each time it came up. And we responded as a board.
So I think the important thing is to say thank you, Phil, for identifying this as a real need and an issue, and for driving that committee to make sure that we don't miss things.
Yeah, two questions I have, if you don't mind. First is for the Historical Preservation Board, when these companies make these applications, is it a requirement under state law? Do they say municipality generally, or is it to the historic?
No, these are federal regulations, and
Okay.
they apply to any interested party. The Historical Society will get a similar letter,
Okay,
and it could go to almost anyone in the municipality that they do their due diligence and research in terms of, or supposed to do, to determine, well, who would have a vested interest. And clearly, when there's a National Registered District, that means any historical society and historic preservation board. Part of our concern is that, okay, now that there's not an historic preservation board, will the letters just go to the historical
Right.
society?
Which in itself
You
could
know,
be a reason that we need to create.
And so
that
we've been,
structure.
we're talking with the historical society, because when they first got their letters, we also told them, look, no, you've got to respond to these.
Yeah.
And we gave them some ideas, and we're still working with them to try to get them to understand the process a little bit too. So yes, that's
okay,
something.
so yeah, so there's legally no It isn't like, it's a matter of law, like things have to go to a planning commission, it's like things like this had to go to a historic.
The section 106 it's section 106 is what it falls under, so any like federally funded, the language in it is sort of vague, but the more specific we are with saying like, we're a historic preservation board, the more authority to some degree we have and being able to like respond, or like, if it's, listed and name on the website, we have a point person, that sort of thing, and it's easier for them to not weasel around.
Yeah, I mean, there should be at least a link up with our website to do that, so if there's if there's a question on this. I don't know how we would want to word it, but so that people would know, applicants know this is where they would go to make that request. And I'm assuming that as far as having interest, you can't think of a scenario where we wouldn't have an interest, so. I'm not saying that's sarcastic, I just don't want to you to be in a position or someone to be in a position to say, yes, we want to be an interested party, and then someone says, oh, no, we don't want to be interested in that. Again, I don't know.
So a question on process. So it seems like you've got some long-term objectives, things that you want to make sure you take care of, and this is like a short-term immediate need. So can we ask the municipality to act on this? Or do we have
We
to?
probably already acted. That's why I'm making notes to look into.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
Well, yeah, that's why I asked the question.
Okay, so we used to have liaisons between boards. So is it possible that someone like Phil could serve as a liaison between this board and the Historic Society?
So I do
You
that.
do that
currently. I did that with Historic Preservation Board. So they have meetings once every 2 months. So I have a good relationship with them over there and have communicated to them pretty much every meeting when they ask for updates from me from things. And if there's ever anything that comes their way, I say,
So we already
funnel
have
it
that in
over.
place, which is good.
So there are some issues there that we're going to need to create more structure, and then our subcommittee will come up with something specific. On the positive side, basically, the staff knows about this now. I mean, so, because the letter could go to any staff person, basically, it would have to go to someone in the municipality that works for
Sure, but it would make sense if it would land with
So,
Mr. Warden or myself.
but I'm not sure how you would get that out to I'm not sure how Laura's one they picked, these companies started picking. But it's up to them. It's their responsibility to find the contact person in the interested party. But we'll work on that. Great instruction.
Fantastic.
And then, the last category is just looking over the other duties that we have that relate to our more immediate ongoing process here with all of the projects that we are dealing with the comprehensive plan. Which ones are most relevant to historic preservation in terms of where we can want to make sure we're there to provide input. And certainly those things that are impacting are things like economic development, need land use. The zoning one, as we do, they give us the zoning, we're already looking forward to that one.
All right, good. That's what I want to hear. Good enthusiasm.
Because we need the historic preservation board responsibility is required. Anything that is a potential negative impact to in the municipality, to historic, not just historic properties, but to the cultural landscape as a whole, really what it comes down to. And indicating negative and positive impacts and ways to either enhance positive impacts or mitigate negative impacts. That's something that we can be a voice here in the broader context here, talking about these comprehensive plan points that we're focusing on. So then we have to meet again to create a structure. We haven't got a chair or anything like that yet, but we're working on it.
Thank you for your good work.
Fantastic.
Sustainability and Local Ecology Committee.
Great. So this committee met on September 14th. It includes Laura Lindy, Chet Wade, myself, Natalie Gerber in the audience, and John Vogel. And so what we did was we have items 1 through 9 as a part of sort of the part that we're looking at. So what we decided to do in terms of structure is to divide and conquer. So each of us is taking a particular section and doing a deep dive into one of those areas. There's a couple of areas where we didn't choose someone because we decided that we didn't necessarily have anyone that we had enough to do with the ones that we picked. So for example, number 1, the tree canopy management plan. Lynn is going to be doing research on opportunities there. That also includes number 2. So that's an area that we're going to be looking at as well. Chet has volunteered to look into the burying of overhead wires in strategic locations. He's already had a meeting with Commissioner Flynn, and they have some next steps and to-dos about that. Thank you very much, Chet. We are all going to be looking at number 5, which is the climate action plan, and obviously that has a lot to unpack all on its own. Which also includes number 6, which is transition to carbon neutrality, kind of included in the carbon management plan. Lynn and Natalie are going to be looking specifically at the household waste reduction strategies. So that, again, with each of these, what they want to do is figure out what resources already exist, what plans have already been created. They'll want to probably have a conversation with the municipality to sort of understand the level set beyond what we got on that meeting last time. And then they will be bringing back to our committee some ideas for things that we can do. We decided that number 8, the emergency management and with climate and weather related events should actually be linked to the climate action plan. So again, all of us are going to be sort of looking into that. Chet took another big one here with stormwater management. And so he is also going to be doing a deep dive on that area. So that's the way that we decided to kind of divide and conquer on that committee. We plan to get together again before our next gathering. And unless anyone on the committee has any other updates, that is the update for the committee status.
Yeah, I think it also bears for what, there have been some emails that went around with the good work Chet did and probably for the benefit of the group. Chet,
Chet, do you want to?
Yeah, please talk about it.
Sure. Very briefly, I met with Commissioner Flynn last Monday. And I got a better understanding of what he was talking about in undergrounding utilities, not necessarily trying to target specific places today that need to be undergrounded. There are a lot of challenges to that. The utility companies typically don't like to spend the money unless they absolutely have to, which I understand. He's looking more at longer term. There are cities out there that right now are, for example, when they tear up a street because they need to rebuild it, are putting conduit in right now to facilitate future movement toward undergrounding. These communities are looking at it because of climate change, trying to harden the electric grid and the other infrastructure grid. There are some potential opportunities for grant funding for this kind of work through the federal, particularly in state government, and also some potential revenue opportunities as some organizations, for example, telecom organizations look for alternate means to, wires, fiber, whatever, rather than, renting space on poles. So what I'll be doing, I'll be meeting next with the Public Works Director at the Commissioner's direction to get a little better understanding of this and try to figure out if there's a policy we would like to recommend to the supervisors about how would the township approach this in the future. Would we start to consider, for example, burying conduit in the ground as we do major upgrades of streets? The other topic is stormwater we talked a little bit about, and that's this idea of not necessarily where we're going to recommend specific infrastructure projects, but are there other ways that there would be policy to enhance the reduction of stormwater runoff? For example, the township does have a couple of opportunities for residents to receive credits if they do things to reduce the amount of runoff. One is a one-time credit for if you buy a rain barrel. The other one is if you do a larger project, but it's on the scope where they would like to see a professional engineer's plans submitted with this request for a credit. So you have the low bar and the really high bar. Should we be considering a policy that creates middle ground to give people incentive to do things, to remove paving, to create, rain gardens, the things that you might not get an engineer, you wouldn't need an engineer, but there would be incentives to do things like this. So there's a potential in that area as well. So that kind of came out of the conversation.
So it's actually a really good reminder that meeting with individual commissioners who have interest in these things, anyone can do that at any time. They accept our phone calls and they'll meet with us. So that's a great example of Commissioner Flynn, and thank you for his time sitting with you and going through all of that. I think the same is true for municipal staff. I guess we need to.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I know Chet's having a follow-up with Rudy Sukol, right? So, if there's a project that you're working on and you feel like you need to reach out to staff, a good example is the tree canopy. I'm gonna say it again, I'm on Tree Pittsburgh's board. So anybody that wants to talk about that, I'm a good person to talk to because we have a lot of federal money actually right now on various things. So yeah, reach out to staff, reach out to commission.
Lynn, I got it.
Got it?
Got it.
All right, boom.
On it.
All right.
So that's our committee update.
Next is Economic Business District Committee.
Seriously, go ahead.
So we met, I don't have the notes in front of me, but we've met twice. And we had scope 12 through 19. And we first looked through all of them to see, do we want to eliminate some and just focus on a couple of areas, which was your recommendation at the last meeting. And the areas we were looking at initially involved the Dennis Corridor Parseway, which was voted down, but I'm still, I have to wait for the October
Well, there's
4th,
a, yeah.
October 4th meeting with John Delano. But then we also looked at the Castle Shannon corridor and better connectivity of that to Uptown. I originally thought that the partnership would be dealing with that, and it's not. And so it seems like it's left on its own. So we're looking at that, and we can go into more detail on the notes. And then looking at underutilized spaces. And a lot of what we were looking at, of course, intersects with zoning, but it also intersects with the overall strategy for business attraction and retention. And so we had a meeting with Kate Urban to fill in some of these. Kate is the executive director for the partnership, for the Mount Lebanon Partnership. And she's senior director of economic development for the downtown partnership. It has a lot of experience and works well with Eric on a number of things. And so we do want to have a follow-up meeting with you, Eric, but we also talked with Paul Ostergaard, who is working with a group on a white paper on zoning going forward in Mount Lebanon. And so a lot of this is kind of uncovering what's already going on, who's already, concurrently intersecting with what we're doing, or potentially where we may want to try to weigh in, or at least be aware of the types of recommendations that will be in that white paper. And then we do want to get more information to potentially weigh in on the business attraction and retention strategy. We have a lot of questions for you there, Eric, that we'll do, after this meeting. So that's kind of it in the general sense, but these two have a lot to add.
Yeah, so I think, great job. I think that the thing that, the number one for us in terms of collaborating with the municipality is, should we be reviewing and crafting a business attraction and retention policy that would extend to all the business districts? Because when you break down all of the different points that we are to cover, it ranges from Uptown, which is really covered by so many of the other community organizations already. Beverly Road, which we've kind of talked about, vibrancy scores there. You've got this, is it C5 or C2? C2,
yeah.
Sorry, which we kind of have pushed off to the side. And what we find most interesting and potentially most measurable is Castle Shannon specifically, and how to work through that. But offline, we have tons of questions of how to sort of build and measure how we would do this. When we met with Kate, one of the places that she thought could be good starting point is Beaver County as an example, in terms of what kind of actual plans that they have or how they handle it as a starting point. And that is it. So it's review and craft the business attraction and retention policy, and then it's strengthening the Castle Shannon Business District and figuring out if we can also expand our scope to kind of overlap with the mobility and transportation boards there, because we talked a lot about the walkability of that area and how that could also influence economic development.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and I'll talk about it when we get to it on the agenda with the staff liaison report, but there's quite a bit happening, so.
There is, and I
I'll
think
wait.
there's a couple different things. So to Anna's point earlier, there are two ad hoc committees that will have big parts in the points that we are supposed to be covering. So it's the South Garage, which, because it has an ad hoc report, we kind of will be stepping away. And then there's the ordinances and rezoning or zoning, again, that would potentially influence this quite a bit, but that's an ad hoc. So we're sort of, stepping behind. So,
yeah, maybe one more topic that we discussed was vacant properties and underutilized businesses. So that's something for us to explore for the next meetings, like either vacancy ordinances or something similar. Different municipalities have different regulations for that.
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea for us to get together sooner rather than later.
Yeah, we had some of the specific questions, not to go into too much detail here, but, what level of, power, soft or hard power, does the municipality have for some of these absentee landlords and, space that's underutilized and all of that, and, and how do we go about exercising that? And so that's one area, but that's kind of like the beginning for then, what do you do with those spaces? So.
Yeah, and then the last thing is just also to gather any kind of building ownership lease renewal schedules, just so we sort of understand who and who's where, how long they're going to be there. Do we need to come up with a game plan on who might replace them if they're going to be exiting at, a certain time?
Yeah, let's talk about this, because there's a lot of, I mean, we're not a mall, so, this is multiple private property owners with legal binding lease agreements with tenants. They have no reason to share that, so we can ask, but it doesn't mean they'll provide, so that, again, we could go, I think this,
Yeah,
that's why.
our power in that where is kind of soft if someone is, you see, like, let's say it's known that a certain tenant is moving out. Well, then, obviously Eric's gonna talk to them and get a little scuttlebutt of what's.
Yeah, that's what I do all day.
He hears that stuff, but to put together something, you can make a list of things to do that. Now, I know one time, gosh, I worked with Phil's office, I did something compiling properties. This is years ago. And was looking to see like who owed money, or I think areas that when they were trying to do something in
I
Pennsylvania.
remember that, that's
Yeah.
correct, yeah.
And,
Yeah, tax delinquent.
yeah, tax delinquent and what to do about them. And so I think, we can revisit that, but also I think, I don't know, it's come up with 1,000 ideas, things for you, Eric, to do, but is it something where it's in that area that someone could provide the information to that committee saying, this is kind of what we can do now? And I don't know if that's someone from Phil's office, I certainly, I'm sure he doesn't want us to do direct lines to the solicitor's office, so.
Yeah, that's what, I think if it sounds like you've got a lot of
A lot of questions.
a lot of
yeah.
questions, a lot of
And
things that need to be
Just for the
sorted.
record, the comment about power was more about vacant properties. And, there was one in particular where apparently the guy has a grudge against Mount Lebanon and says, I'm not doing anything. And we, are we too polite, or do we have more ability to?
Yeah, let's have this conversation. Yeah, that's a follow-up.
And so that's, takes, thank you very much. On all these things, and maybe I'm just 2 steps behind on this, but in doing this, can we at least have like a list of who's on here, let's say emails, phones, if they want to give it out, to say who's on what committee, so we know where everybody is.
Yep.
And can we have that for next meeting?
Absolutely.
Or even 2 weeks in it. And another thing that may be good, again, I want to see what again, knowing that municipal resources are not unlimited. The idea that is, we have these reports, is it possible to get the minutes early, like even a week or so we know, so that it prompts us at least halfway through the cycle to know what everybody is doing?
Are you talking about these
From the
minutes?
meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah, all minutes
Oh,
are,
for
we
the
try to get them a
committees.
week ahead.
yeah, but
From the subcommittees, right?
yeah.
Subcommittees, it would be great to have reports. I got a few, but it'd be nice if there was also like a written report, just summary. It doesn't have to be high level. A high level report is fine. Just so that there's some documentation that we can then keep on track, keep record, but just I think it would.
Yeah, I mean, at least for the subcommittee reports, because again, that's easy for anyone. I would say, well, you can do a report, but if that can maybe be done after, I mean, even if it's just dictating into Dragon software, something like that,
Yeah.
it comes out.
Bullet points, doesn't
Yeah,
have to be-
bullet points, it doesn't have the report, but just to give an idea of what that is, because again, it's so that we all know what each other are doing, and not that, it just seems better that way, because the temptation is on something like this is to do it, then go out to do the work, and then forget about it for 3 weeks to come back. And these committees have not done that, they've done the opposite, but it's just trying to fight against human nature.
Yep.
So I'd say, yeah, if it can be done, and I guess, how should they be submitted to you, and then Eric, you send out to the group? Okay. That'd be-
Yeah, send it to me, and then especially once things really start churning, I think it would make sense to compile sort of a motherboard document that has all of these various things, and just a spreadsheet, if you will, that has all the various initiatives. Once everybody gets sorted, so that we know sort of, what's ADC, 1, 2, 3, who's doing what, where, and just to keep everybody on the same page, because, it's clearly there's a lot of work right now just trying to figure out, getting everything distilled into what, you guys really want to sink your teeth into. But, until that point, until everything's distilled, probably want to capture all this energy and ideas and put that in one source document.
So then October 23rd is our next meeting. When do you want this information from the subcommittees?
Well, we're to have just.
After we meet, it seems like within a couple of days
Yeah,
after we
just,
meet.
yeah, or even that night if you're bored and come home and, have a glass of Chianti or a cup of tea and,
You can
type
dictate it to Eric. He'll type it.
yeah, no. No, you don't want me typed, but, yeah, so that would work. Now, just so everybody knows, all of the advisory boards are to have your, agendas and minutes to you folks and to the public a week ahead of time. So that, just to give you a sense of that. So that will always happen, but, leading up to that point, whatever information I have a week ahead of our meeting will be disseminated. But if I don't have it, it won't. But that's fine. Things happen, life happens. So, but I think, we'll get our groove on here.
Sorry, just writing.
So moving to the staff liaison report.
Yeah, sure. So, we can maybe split up. I don't know if Mr. Warden has anything he'd like to report out. I already mentioned the artist market. That's this weekend. So, please consider going again. It's Saturday and Sunday, 10 to 5. That's going to be pretty fantastic. Krill and I and a bunch of others were on the Activate Uptown steering committee meeting this morning. I think I alluded at the last meeting about the survey that we did, and we had a very robust response. I'm very pleased with it. We had nearly 1,300 responses. 3,000, I'd be doing cartwheels. But 1,300, I'm going to still sit here, but I'm going to express I'm very happy about it. So we have, and I can share that with anybody that would be interested in seeing it. We have it all summarized with charts and everything. So we even have a demographic breakdown of who responded for those that wanted to give us that information. So we reviewed the survey summary data and the summary information, and then broke down that into various nodes. So in the Activate Uptown plan for those at home and for those in the room, this is a subsequent follow-up, high-level conceptual planning effort for the Uptown district, where we're looking at 6 nodes in the district for activation and placemaking principles. So we're looking at Clearview Common, the Alfred Lot, Alfred Street, what I call Clock Tower Plaza, the stairs that lead to Parsway and Parsway. So what we did at the meeting is essentially we aggregated what I'll call the Clearview zone. So Clearview Common, the Alfred Lot, and Alfred Street to take a look at that. And then I call that the main course. And then the side dishes are the other areas that we're focusing on. So I'm having a meeting with Passion tomorrow. I'm going to be sharing this information with them. But we went through each one of those nodes, discussed the various concepts that rose to the top. And then we discussed how we want the public meeting to go, which is going to be happening. Break out your pens, break out your pencils, October 16th. That's going to be at 6 p.m. We're going to be hosting that tentatively right now. It's at Howard Hanna. And the reason it's going to be at Howard Hanna is they have a large meeting room that sits right on Clearview Commons. So what better place to have a charrette than in the middle of what you're talking about? So that's where we're tentatively meeting. I'm going to go take a look at the space, but we have approval to use it. But I want to make sure it'll work with the flows and whatnot. But so essentially that meeting will be your typical charrette. And for those who aren't familiar with the charrette, it's essentially an opportunity to look at different design concepts and provide your inputs, what you like, don't like. If you don't see something there, you can say, you can provide that information. So we're at a drumbeat leading up to that. And this morning's steering committee meeting was again reviewing the survey data that we received. So I can share that with the entire board if you'd like to see it. There's some interesting stuff in there. some really good ideas, lots of ideas. So we'll be taking a look at that. In terms of, this is something that anybody used to be with me on the EDC, I'll just take a brief moment to talk about some things that are happening in some of the commercial districts. Work is underway on the Toastique, which is right beside Sesame Inn. So that's a major renovation job. We're very excited about that. I am, at least. So Toastique is a higher end fast casual type concept. Yes, it involves toast. So you can imagine, you know, the famous avocado toast, but they take it to other levels. But there's also fresh juices. Wellness is a key tenet of the business. So I'm expecting really amazing things out of that space. It's been sitting there fallow since I've been here. So it's nice to finally see that turn the corner. Where Caspian Corner is now going to be an Uzbekistani restaurant. So they're in the midst of getting their occupancy permit. So that is moving forward. David Allen Clothier had their grand opening, I believe it was a couple weeks ago. Really fantastic. I was underdressed as usual, but it was a very nice event.
Fix that.
He could fix, I don't know if he could fix it, Anna, but he could, if he could fix it, he's worth his weight in gold. But so that was fantastic, and that was moving along. On Beverly Road, as you may know, Pandaria has opened. Fantastic breakfast and lunch. So if you have not had an opportunity to go see the renewed and enlarged Pandaria, I highly encourage you to do so. Fantastic. Mexican, they still do the baked goods, but now they've expanded into other things. Iovino's is underway, well underway. They have a few things they have to sort through, but that is happening,
Is that
and
why they stopped painting?
they did stop painting. And then Bados is also still under renovation. So I don't know how public that tenant is, but that's well underway. So those are just.
Is that another food tenant?
It is another food tenant, yeah. It is, but they're from out of town. I think I can say they're from Brooklyn, but I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about what the name is, but it should be nice. So they're doing a complete gut job on that. So Bados was Bados, and this will not be that. So
Are there any projected opening dates for either of those, or any of the things that you just talked about, actually? With Toastique?
yeah, Toastique, they're really banging it out. If you actually, and I actually, if you park in the back, by the way, you guys can all park in the back after hours. So if you're parking in the garage or on street, you're welcome to park in our parking lot in the back. And if you do, you'll see some of the work that they're doing in the back. So they're putting in a whole new stairwell and all kinds of things for various reasons. They would like to be open fourth quarter, first quarter. So fourth quarter this year, first quarter next. Jeff is doing everything he can to be open as soon as possible, and you know, we're hopeful for that. The work they're doing is fantastic. It's beautiful. I had the pleasure of having Jeff offer me a tour. It's a hand-built bar. The menu, I'm not going to give anything away, but it's going to be fantastic. Jeff always does wonderful things. So that should be this year. We replaced the festoon lighting over there. I don't know if anybody noticed, but the festoon lighting was taken down because it was bought at Lowe's and was not working as well as it should be. And it was also hanging down. You could jump rope with it. So we replaced that the correct way. So if you drive down Beverly Road tonight, please take a look at the festoon lighting. So we wanted to get that all in place for Jeff's reopening and the whole rearrangement of things over there for the holidays, of course. So that's good to go. But like any construction project, it's always a moving target. But they would like to be open as soon as possible, as we all would. Any questions?
I have a suggestion. Those 1,300 responses, I think they're really good. I would recommend for everyone to read it, specifically the text
I would
portion
love
as
to.
well. Yes, it might be worth sharing with the whole committee. Because I read through them like for our subcommittee with some very interesting recommendations. Because people are right, I want this, I want that, and there are some really good ideas for people.
Yeah, there's a lot, and that's, thank you, Kirill. I mean, that's, so the survey was, like, in my opinion, any good survey is succinct and guides you kind of through the process. But there was also an opportunity to let people expound, and they did. So there's a robust comment section. So I'd be happy to share all of that with the committee. So I'll do that tomorrow morning.
All right. Anything else under old business? Anything under new business? Okay, announcement of next meeting time and date.
We have our junior
Yes, Commissioner Ish.
Commissioner Advisory Board person.
Junior board member.
Junior board member.
Yes.
Hi, Justin Metz. I go to Seton LaSalle High School. I'm a senior. Yeah, that's about me. I play ice hockey. Just here to learn about how government works.
Thanks for being
Glad you're
here.
Glad to be here.
And he got a bottle of her too.
Don't use it.
Yeah, that's right.
Soda and.
Oh, sure.
Sure.
You need to practice.
Yeah.
It's your wine.
It's your one.
John, I had a question about the structure of the subcommittees. I mean, you are an ex officio member of every,
Yes,
as such, I mean, is the intent of the structure that you are a full voting member of the committee? I mean, ex officio can mean a lot of different
ex
things.
officio mean a lot of things, and also part of it is, it's very tough for me to make all three meetings, subcommittee meetings a month, something that Eric disabused me of that.
I can
But
relate.
I do want to, I mean, what do you think would be the best thing on that? Because again, I think I should be at least one committee meeting a month, at least. But I'm open on that because again, if I'm ex officio to all of them, but if I'm more officio than others, I just want to make sure that that's the balance of the group. I mean, any suggestions on that?
I just think as long as you're looped in and you're aware of the meetings and you're sort of the point person on that information, I think that's fine. I love the idea of rotating personally. I mean, amongst the current three that we have and as things develop, move, whatever. But I think that's fair. I mean, I think it's difficult for anybody to make that level of meetings. Just with your day job and other obligations. So I think that's equitable and fair.
You know,
Well, it occurred to me, I mean, if we establish that it is basically as a non-voting ex officio member, we can actually have other members of the board on a given committee beyond the three.
You just can't have
You can't have more than four voting members on the committee. That's the point, right? So particularly if John's was rotating through these, so not that anybody's interested in joining an extra committee, but it just occurred to me that would not limit us to just the three.
And again, just like the sustainability and local ecology, they brought on some folks that are outside of this sphere. And I think that's fantastic. So there might be I know there's a lot of talent out there that's interested in historic preservation.
The only stipulation we have to watch out for is that if, let's say you have 5 members of this board that meet, technically it is a resiliency advisory board meeting because you have a quorum. So that's where we run into
The
that.
non-voting member, you don't have a quorum. That's, you have to officially establish that as a
but
voting participant.
That's
Which has been the case in some organizations I've been on.
but I think that, if we have,
You're all voting members of the resiliency advisory
yeah.
board, not a subcommittee. So
Yeah.
even if you are a non-voting member of a subcommittee, if you have 5 members of this board meet, it is a quorum and it has to be published. and
So it could be
everything.
4.
yes,
So it can only be 4.
and you can
It
chase
could
me.
be 4. One.
As long
extra
as
person.
John's not.
But as long as John's not present.
As long as John's not present.
If I get disinvited, I will know why. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's an important thing. I'd love to help with economic development, for example, but I can't in the current structure.
Yeah, it's something where. I said, let's how this plays out the next couple months to see. And then that way, if there are certain things where, I don't want to get hamstrung, not me personally, I don't want the script to get hamstrung on something like that, but if they, again, part of it is, you're right, part of it is if you have a quorum, then you're in, whether you just sit on the side or actively do that, but, there's nothing against if you meet with other members of if it's a one-on-one or something like that. Two-on-one, as long as you don't hit the magic number of 5.
Just as long as it's not 5.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
It's artificial, but yeah.
Well, I was just trying to think of a way, like, for instance, with historic preservation, a lot of time, maybe there would be some particular thing that a subcommittee is working on, where historic preservation is something that they would need input on and have a member of our group attend that meeting, but then you'd have to make sure that John wasn't there. It's-
We can
Or you could be.
We can do that.
just
He's
separately,
happy. He'd be happy to be like, historic preservation's coming.
Well, let's cross that bridge when we come to it then, so. That's the best thing. Anything else for the good of the order?
I have a question regarding the subcommittees, the ad hoc committees. When is that being discussed, decided, et cetera, for South Garage and then the,
Not to be glib, I think that's really up to the three subcommittees to figure that out when you want to do it, just to give you a sense of timeline. Let's use South Garage, as you brought that up. So, you know, where that stands right now is we met with WTW Architects, and they're still in the due diligence phase, right? So we had a meeting with them, and one of the things they're looking to do is where are we gonna park all these people once we, you know? So, I mean, that's still in that phase. So that's not super pressing. Zoning's another one, like when do you want to start an ad hoc on zoning? That one I'd probably start thinking about sooner rather than later, because we're already in October and we're looking to do that next year. Can't tell you exactly when next year, but you know, if you want to have an ad hoc that's working on zoning that pulls, I don't know, just picking people here out of the, you know, Phil and, you know, Grace and whomever, I don't know, Krill. But you know,
Now, the ad hoc committees, are they subject, they're not subject to the same rules though?
they're only to be in place for my recollection is a year.
But you're not talking about, we don't have that 5.
No, I mean, ad hocs are,
Yeah, no
just
problem.
like, it's, ad hoc is what an ad hoc is. It's a
So the,
very specific, tangible outcome. It's a working group that's focused on a very specific granular type issue.
shed light on what the design committee for the partnership is doing with Paul leading it, doing the zoning white paper for the municipality?
Yeah, and just for everyone else, and keep in mind, these are public, and so there's people at home that might be watching or something like that. So the question is, what is the Mount Lebanon Partnerships Design Committee? And let's start with what is the Mount Lebanon Partnership? The Mount Lebanon Partnership is a separate body from the municipality. It's completely independent. It has its own working board. And as part of the structure of the partnership, they have a series of their own committees. One of which is the design committee, and the purview of the design committee of the partnership is to look at the public realm, specifically in the Uptown District. That's their mission and charge as a designated main street, so forth. So one of the tasks that they've decided to pick up in that committee, why it's in design, I'm not quite sure, but that's where it's at, is to look at the zoning impact. So one of the committee members, as well as some others, and I believe it's also a joint effort with the Economic Vitality Committee, because I think there are some folks from that committee that are participating in that exercise. But they recognize that this is a great opportunity to enhance a lot of our zoning. And some very tangible examples is our signage. Our signage ordinance is, I'm gonna, terrible. It's outdated, it's been outdated, and it needs a refresh. So they're taking a look at that. And there are other zoning issues, like say painting masonry, various other things that they are taking a look at. So they're looking at model language that they're then looking to present to the municipality. So it would, so they're doing that as the Mount Lebanon Partnership. I'm not involved in that. I'm thankful for the good work that they're doing, and I'm sure it'll be a fantastic document. And so they're getting themselves ready for when the zoning exercise takes place next year. I don't know if that answers your question, but so they're looking really at model, like I know that they have model signage ordinance from other communities throughout the
Yeah.
nation.
And Paul did say he would meet with us and brief us, but he wanted to get a little further along first, but I didn't know how it tied into the overall work, or whether is the municipality waiting for this white paper?
No, we're not.
Okay.
So, but with that being said, we're willing to receive it. I mean, if you follow me, and I'll use Move Lebo as another example. So that's a new organization that is organized. They're working mostly with the Mobility Board. They're also independent. They just received their 501c3 status. And their whole mission is enhancing the experience of the alternative forms of transportation. So, you know, Move Lebo has been very active. They've really developed very quickly. Again, just recently, is my understanding, have a 501c3, and they're also looking at these sorts of things. So, you know, all of these, the zoning, that's a great example. I mean, that's just like the comp plan. It's a public process, so they're exercising their rights as residents and citizens to provide information to the municipality, just like anything else. It's just like when you're in school, if you prepare a good paper, you get a good grade, or you get acknowledged maybe more than maybe some others. It's just the same kind of theory, so they're doing a lot of the hard work now, and now's the time to be doing it, because once the process starts, if you're not at the ready, you may miss opportunities, and just like anything else, and I'll shut up. The sooner you start working on these things, you start thinking about it, then the more you can tease out things and you don't have any, oh shoot, I forgot that. You just be more thorough.
So a question on that. It seems like the ad hoc committees though are, because they're responding instead of proactive, I mean, their very nature is to be responsive to something. So for example, with the South Garage, it seems like that committee can be stood up at your cue when you have some decision points.
That's a great,
Kind of same with the zoning. It's like, once there's this white paper that's out, or there's a confronting issue, some sort of forcing function that makes that ad hoc committee, it's like you could know who's interested in it, but that committee doesn't need to stand up because it has that 1-year term. You don't want to stand it up if you have nothing to talk about. You have to wait until there's a forcing function to get it started.
and maybe and I'm not saying this is the answer, but to Anna's point, like for instance, the zoning, we haven't even put together our request for proposals, or any of that, you know what I'm saying? So, once that's kind of stuff starts framing,
I just had a question. Is it like an update to like the full, like
Yes.
ULDC, like okay.
residential, commercial, yeah, it's not,
Got it.
I'm selfish talking about commercial because that's what I do. But this is looking at the whole enchilada.
The entire municipality.
Now, how do they, not going too far afield, what overall from the commission point of view down there? You're gonna hire a consultant and we'll be meeting with different focus groups and groups to do this and put together. And then I guess at a certain point, what happens is they'll have a draft there, but then again, that's gonna go through some vetting process. on
Yeah,
that because.
and again, I don't have the insight into it. I don't know that we've even drafted the RFP right at this point. So, but yes, I mean, it would be your standard sort of public process equation.
Yeah, I mean, usually what'll happen, because I've been involved in zoning rewrites, what'll happen is that you'll have a group, you'll put together the ordinance, usually hire a consultant for that, and they make a presentation. They may divide up that presentation in different points, whether it's residential, commercial, signs, things like that. And they want to have public process in that. But when they go before the commissioners, they're going to be the ones who are going to be vetting it and looking at it, maybe sending back committee and the like. So it can happen, it can take various different forms. And some in this committee, I mean, there's going to be a lot of people who will have a big say in this. I've had some places where I represent one committee, they've been working on the zoning ordinance for a couple of years, and the place has less than 1,000 people. But there are other places that I can say in Scott Township, we've had public meetings, hearings on adopting the zoning ordinance. We had 2 people in the audience. That's how.
Oh, well, I'm gonna put a couple zeros after that.
Yeah.
So when is the last?
Is that the new
time-
protocol for?
It should be. So when was the last time this zoning ordinance redo was completed in Mount Lebanon? Because there's a bunch of parcels that could be at risk, so it's super important. Like, I'm gonna be at that first meeting.
Yeah, I'm gonna preface what I'm about to say by saying I don't really know, but I believe it was in the early to mid 90s. And I know we did so that's something we need to.
When Keith McGill was the planner, he wrote there was an update.
They did an update, but not the full, I mean, this is a total scrub down review. So I couldn't tell you when that happened, if it ever really did, I don't know is the answer, but I know just looking at various documents, the 96 comes up in my head.
What prompted this expensive undertaking?
A lot of concerns about the current zoning. And I'll just speak again from my perch here. Yeah, and I'll just pick on signage again. Time and time again. We have businesses here that want to do basic signage that you would see in Lawrenceville or Southside or Carnegie, and almost anywhere else. We have a very restrictive code, which leads to cartoonishly small signs, or there's sort of an encouragement that leads people to put these wall-mounted signs, which really don't work in a Main Street context. So that precipitated as well as other, that's a big one in my world.
The conversion of plots of land from R to C, for example. Like
Sure.
that's,
Taking a look at that, yeah.
General feedback from the comp plan too.
Yeah, comp plan. Yeah, I mean, that was.
Usually the zoning ordinance is supposed to follow the comp plan.
And that, because the comp plan is a planning document.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It comes out of, it's the planning document for the planning department of any given jurisdiction. So, you know, that popped up in 2013, but it popped up a lot more recently.
so going back to my initial point, which is what I would like to suggest for the propping up of the ad hoc committees, is that when we have something that prompts it, you will let us know.
That's right.
Okay, so that is how that,
So the answer is not yet.
not yet.
Right, that's why,
Yeah, because if we can only work on it a year and we already know that it's gonna be a long process, we don't wanna waste any of the time on that timeline without like a contextual opportunity.
And that's where I think it'll be helpful whenever the RFP is being drafted and
Yeah.
developed, because you'll start to see the ingredients of how the sausage wants to get made, if that makes sense, right? So you'll have something to react to, and would that also give us some sense of timelines and things like that? It'll give us something tangible, as opposed to right now, because I can't tell you, Ray can't tell you, none of us can tell you, Keith
Sure.
can't tell, you, no one, commissioners, when exactly that's gonna hit. Like, you know, the active transportation plan, we had hoped to kind of launch that a little earlier than we did, and we just got that approved last night, right? So, you know, that's happening, you know, the active transportation plan in partnership with Dormont, so, plan. There's lots of planning going on, but at the end of the day, it's all good stuff.
My understanding from the way that the new boards are structured, though, any ad hoc committee or even a subcommittee technically ends at the end of March. That's
Every
the year
year.
timeline every year.
They can, but I think.
No matter when you started the ad hoc committee, it's not gonna last a whole year.
No, but I think what will happen in these committees like that, if it happens the last past year, it doesn't coincide with the March deadline. And I'm thinking that with any type of zoning ad hoc committee, you never know when these things are gonna end, or in a sense, when something we pass. Let's say we work actively, or an ad hoc committee works actively in formulation of the zoning ordinance, and then for whatever reason, whether they're talking about signs or something else, any type of passage gets pushed off for a couple more months, or it's like, okay, we need to review this again, extends it out. I think the commissioners are going to allow that reconstitution of that ad hoc committee
Right.
on that. I mean,
But
because it's
the
practical
different
matter,
members
who's going to
of-
object to it?
The membership of the board changes, that's why that structure's in place.
So
So
I
that
love,
someone who's
I
on
love
the
that Phil
ad-
has read all of the documentation so thoroughly so that he can keep us on point. Because he is right. I mean, there is a stop point in March. And so the ad hoc committee wouldn't run its full course unless something was changed in the way that these were set up.
Yeah, and also in doing the ad hoc committee, if we're talking about members of the committee and others who are part of this ad hoc committee. You could probably, and I wouldn't be surprised if someone moved from like the non-ad hoc, the non-resiliency board role onto the resiliency board and vice versa.
Yeah, and also keep in mind that the way, and it's a little kind of wampus, but if you remember, I sent out when everybody's terms end, and it's just all over the place, and apparently the intent of that is to create this staggering circumstance, so that if you have an ad hoc with 3 people on it, one, maybe even 2 people would cycle off in a given year, but there would be one person that would, you know, so there's, you know, the architecture still needs to be tested, but you know, that's what the architecture is.
Okay.
Anything else for the motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, we have it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.